The non-physical attack on our bodies, all of our bodies, is actually more impactful than any of the other attacks that we encounter on a regular basis. So just as every action has a reaction in some kind of way, every kind of energy has a non-physical energy. Every kind of physical energy, experience, reality has a non-physical experience or reality that we can't perceive from this perspective. Like a television or a radio not being able to pick up that channel for the sake of an experience. A lot of the ancient interpretations of reality have spoke of this in many different ways. And a big part of why the modern interpretation of reality, even going into quantum mechanics, quantum physics, all that other stuff, the main reason why that system stays away from these interpretations is because once you go into that space, you're going to start empowering yourself, being more aware of your reality. This is why the idea of science, modern science, what they call science, has to demonize all of the other interpretations of reality and put itself up on a pedestal against everybody else, calling itself modern, calling itself in so many ways the peak of this human experience, the peak of the idea of human evolution, when in fact, it's a dumbed down version of our reality, claiming to be a more evolved version of this reality. For the sake of control, this is why science, being a weapon of this system, of the non-physical entities who are running this system in so many different ways. An attack on science is an attack on the non-physical stronghold that the entities behind the scenes have on the masses. Science, in so many ways, is the front lines of delving into the non-physical. So you can see it as the physical people, the politicians, the people who are rich and powerful and on physical means. They could be seen as the pawns. They can be seen as the privates in a military war. They're on the front lines. The physical beings, the least powerful ones, are on the front lines to hide, to defend against the non-physical entities behind the scenes. So all of your knights and rooks and all that other stuff, you can go through the evolution of the most powerful ones across the board all the way up until the king and the queen, going more and more from physical to non-physical on this chessboard of duality, of experience. So keeping the masses locked into the physical pawn, military, private sort of observation or interaction of reality is what allows the system to grow over time, because it gives the system more power over time and more focus over time. So each move that are made by the pawns of the physical reality are allowing the non-physical entities to evolve the board, to move pieces around on the board in so many different ways. This is why your psychedelic medicines are also demonized and criminalized, because this is another doorway into the observation and experience of the non-physical, both personally and beyond. So anything that even cracks the door to the non-physical is a threat, because your complete focus needs to be focused on the physical. This is what sits at the core of the heliocentric universe. A complete and utter, not only focus, but mind control expansion of the physical. So taking the physical nature of this earth plane experience and multiplying it to a physical universal experience, creating other universes into infinity as a means to block against the questions of this physical experience. Because not only that, but it also gives these mind controllers free reign to make up whatever kind of interpretations that they want, whatever kind of storylines that they want, in order to make it more attractive, make it more inaccessible to the masses of people, and only being able to be interpreted or explained by the people who go through these systems, through the university system. And the higher and higher you get in intellect, the harder it is to get up there. And the higher and higher you get in that space, the more you are going to be attractive to the systems like the military systems who work on the space of need to know basis, stuff like secret clearances, top secret clearances, above secret clearances, all those clearances. What those really boil down to is the access of information, the knowledge of a particular mind control. So that's the focus level. So that's the focus level of creating the physical universe and how that locks us down in so many different ways. But there's the out of focus mind control that happens when you are disconnected from the non-physical. So locking you into the physical heliocentric universe also locks you out of the, in so many different ways, non-physical universe by disconnecting you from the essence of what the moon is, what the sun is, what the stars are, what the energy is behind these, the idea of the planets, the light beings, beyond just what we can see, the expression of all of these things that exist within our own experience. Like I've said in previous videos, the locking you into the heliocentric universe, locking you into the Darwinian evolution of reality, convincing you that you are nothing more than a old monkey, an evolved monkey. So you're just an animal. You have no other than physical reality powers. You have no non-physical connections to anything. There's nothing spiritual. There's nothing divine about you in any kind of way. You're just an evolved ball of snot, just like the dinosaurs evolved and changed into chickens, and then now it's our turn to evolve from monkeys to whatever we're going to do now, since they say it's intelligent. So now conveniently they just evolve you into another physical trap, which is the idea of transhumanism and technology. Another dream within a dream within a dream. And since they include so much of the information that exists within your, for lack of a better term, spiritual library, all these things that exist in the quantum realm or interpretations by the university system, mirror image. They have to mirror image the stuff that has been broken down by ancestral interpretations because it makes it more real. It locks in the new age interpreters because they don't really go into the research of realizing the sinister nature of quantum physics and the quantum university system. They don't go into challenging that system because they need that system to maintain the validity of their alien-based, channeling-backed heliocentric universe. So they won't question. This is why people in the New Age won't even question or go into the idea of a non-heliocentric universe, because they need that universe to exist to hold up all the foundations that they've built for themselves, centered around extraterrestrial aliens and all this other stuff that's based on a illusory universe. And this is also why they don't question or challenge anything within the university system, because the university system holds that universe together. And if they're backing the university system, that means they have to back the power and the intelligence behind the university system, which are the pillars of the entire system altogether. So this is why they will also not challenge the entire system, which is why a lot of these New Agers lock into the progressive movement, because the progressive movement doesn't really challenge the system. The progressive movement is interested in allowing the system to stay alive and actually, best case scenario from their perspective, fix itself, become better. It was never designed to be better, just like the system was never designed to act any different than the way it's acting today. It was designed to do exactly what it's doing today. This system had a shelf life. And that shelf life is being challenged based upon our own consciousness. So to see that this system, being intelligent, is aware of its shelf life because it's aware of our consciousness. So if that's the case, then the system will have a backup plan to when we're not buying that system off the shelf anymore because it's expired. So transhumanism has been put on the shelf. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics has been put on the shelf. Progressivism has been put on the shelf. The New Age community has been put on the shelf. Everything within that space, from the extraterrestrial stuff, the channeling, the merging from the UFO extraterrestrial stuff into the mainstream media, that's all to combat the dying nature of the old system and bring in this idea of a new one, which will still be heavily centered and focused on the bastardized or broken version of the physical reality at the expense of the non-physical, which is key. So some of the ways that they do this is to separate us in so many different ways from the non-physical by not only taking our awareness away from the non-physical, but amplifying our experience of the physical. Both of those are equally important. There are even some non-physical perspectives of reality that are created and emphasized to create almost like an artificial non-physical experience. So this is why you have terminology like the idea of happiness. Somebody asked me the other day, an old friend that I haven't talked to since high school, asked me a simple question, just a nice question, asked me if I'm happy. I doubt she's aware of my online YouTube channel, all this other stuff. So she basically only knows me from high school. So to ask me that question, my response was, do you want me to be honest or do you want me to give you the prepackaged version that everybody else wants to hear on a regular basis? And of course, she asked for the honest response, and I'm just going to read it because I don't really want to go into... You'll get where I'm coming from after I explain how this exists in this non-physical and the artificial non-physical. So this is all text message. So it was written as, happiness is an illusion, a fairy tale we retell ourselves to cope with the full spectrum of reality. It can't be attained because we are forever evolving and more complex in one stream of perspective. The idea of happiness and being happy sits at the core of unhappiness and the judgment of the rest of our experience in comparison to what we call happy and happiness. I welcome the full spectrum of experience. Happy moments are there, but this place isn't really made of happiness and gumdrops and everything else around that idea. It's more than that, and even leans more towards the darker parts of our experience. Being aware of that and being able to traverse through it all is what I would call exciting and full more than happy, in quotes. So I would say I'm full and excited every day to add more to that fullness in whatever way presents itself. Unless it's like a nap day, then I just want to chill out and relax and just be empty of everything and clear out all the excess. Clear the cache. I added that last part, clear the cache, because I'm going to go into the spiritual cache in a moment. But basically, you can see where I'm coming from in reference to the artificial non-physical, the virtual reality that we create for ourselves based upon how we observe reality. So we see on TV how families are supposed to be, how mothers and fathers and kids and their interactions are supposed to be, how relationships are supposed to be, how work is supposed to be, how having fun is supposed to be, how extracurricular activities are supposed to be. All of the things and the ways that we're supposed to interact and perceive this reality are prepackaged to us by the non-physical beings, ultimately being channeled through the physical beings who are selling it to us in the forms of stuff like the American dream, being like a pawn of a pawn. People who can't even achieve the American dream, not even being able to exist on the chessboard, busy trying to make it within the checker game. This is another way to keep people away from the non-physical. And this is why you see in impoverished areas, people just basically taking advantage of the physical in so many different ways. Prostitution, rape, kidnapping, sex trafficking, murders, gang wars, robbery, stealing actual physical shit. In those communities, the physical is the crown. It's the peak. This is why when you have people who come from that space and get a little money, get into the space of having a little cash in comparison to growing up with nothing, this is why they wasted on so many physical things: cars, watches, clothes, shoes, investing it back into their physical body, getting all kinds of breast implants and butt implants and plastic surgery and all the other shit, because they aren't aware of anything other than that reality. They aren't aware of anything other than that experience. So they have to amplify that experience to fill themselves with something, because that's the only way that they could define some kind of fullness. People who are in the American dream retell the story of happiness to themselves over and over again. So in referencing, for one perspective, the energy behind the soul, the mind, and the body, many Hindu teachings in the Sanskrit breakdowns of reality refer to that energy, that essence, as the Ojas. And the Ojas roughly breaking down to the energy of vitality, or the essence of vitality, the drive of this reality. So if there's something going on in our physical reality, psychological or spiritual reality, how that's existing non-physically in the non-physical energy centers, we could call the Ojas. And when I first saw this word, I was pronouncing it Ojas, just because it felt natural to pronounce it that way. But also when you really look into other interpretations, and Chiron Last would be a good channel to break down this perspective. In Spanish, the word for eyes is ojos. So you can see the non-physical eyes of our reality, the non-physical energy, the way we receive this energy is very similar in the wording, the ojas and ojos, ojas. There's more there. I'm not going to go into the details of that here. I really wanted to focus on the energy itself, where it exists, how it exists, and the attack on our ojas on a regular basis on every level. So like I said, in relation to happiness, the idea of happiness, you have these artificial ojas or ojas that exist, that are generated to separate us from the organic ojas. So locking yourself into the heliocentric or the physical universe presented to us by the university system affects our ojas relationship that we have in the physical and the non-physical to the overall experience itself, to the universal energies out there itself. You can see this as non-physical money, non-physical cash. Different parts of this reality exist. You can see it as different like dollar values. So a lot of the times when people talk about ojas, not every time, but a lot of the times when people talk about ojas, they're talking about the energy that exists within sexual experiences. So the energy of the orgasm, the non-physical energy behind that, the interaction of sexual energy, even the thought of sexual energy. So you can see experientially the orgasm being a heavy energy that exists in the physical, psychological, and the non-physical. Because in a sexual energetic transfer, you're creating the foundation, you're creating the space to bring a being from the non-physical into the physical. So sexual energy in relation to ojas is the tippy top in reference to elements that are of value. Ojas can be seen as melanin in comparison to platinum and gold and aluminum and copper and all that other stuff. The way the physical reality has put a value on stuff like diamonds, stuff like that. When you look at the value of something like melanin, it's hundreds of times more valuable than gold and platinum and all the other so-called precious metals that are out there. So the sexual energy, or even the sexual thought, the moment in time that is focused on something around that experience, is of the most value to the non-physical. So this is why you have everything on your daily basis being sold to you and presented to you with sex. They sell cheeseburgers on commercials with sex. They put sex in cartoons. Sex sells clothes. Even the transitions on your sports centers. I saw one time, and I shared in a video a while back, as I was explaining this very concept, how they put sex in everything, specifically in transitions. Sports Center was on the television. We were at a bar, and Sports Center was on the television, and it was some kind of like March Madness thing that was going on. So they had a lot of college basketball teams playing, and in the transition from like a review of what just happened and the live basketball game, they had a ball flying through the side from the left to the right of the screen, and it had a trail behind it. So it created almost a phallic type of shape on the screen, and the ball was going into this circular vagina shaped sort of design. This is all in a transition. So this is happening within a fraction of a second. It's like just like basically nothing. But your subconscious is picking this up. But for people who like to look at this stuff, be more aware of this stuff. This stuff is happening all the time. But this one was just blatantly obvious because, like I said, they had this basketball going across the screen into this vagina, making a trail looking like a phallic symbol. But not only that, once it hit the vagina, it was covered. Like it splashed into the vagina with like this creamy goo. And this, mind you, this is while I'm explaining this very thing happening to a friend of mine who we were just talking about stuff like this, just kind of like deep subject kind of stuff. And, I'm looking around as I'm speaking, and then Sports Center was on. And before the transition even came up, that's when I started talking about it. And then boom, that's when the transition hit. And then we just started laughing our asses off because it was just too obvious. Like it was just the timing of it was beyond impeccable. And you couldn't have asked for a better breakdown or a better example of what I was just sharing with her. So yeah, this stuff is everywhere. Sex is everywhere because like when they're selling it to you in the subconscious, your subconscious, they're selling it to your non-physical, like in relation to your subconscious to the conscious, energetic cash, the same sort of thing. Your subconscious energy and your subconscious focus is like $1,000. It's like the sexual, it's like the melanin energy in comparison to the other precious metals of the conscious experience that, aren't as valuable. You can see this as in relating to like time. Look at how much time is invested in an experience within a dream. So you can go to sleep for 5 minutes and have a 2-hour dream. So you can see that time being worth something, being energy. Whereas a physical experience relating to time doesn't last that long. There's not much going on in there. So the value of that conscious time, I don't want to say is any less valuable. I just want to say the value of it is different because whatever these non-physical entities are doing with it and whatever we're not doing with it, it's more fluid in many different ways. So another way to see it could be from like seeing the ojas as the lubrication of experience through time. So in your subconscious, it's basically all water. It's all oils and, being able to flow through whatever it is, meaning that the flow of energy, the flow of experience, the flow of thought, the flow of ojas is in the subconscious space is very easy. You can just flow right through it. Whereas it's very clunky and slower in time, that you need more lubrication in the physical experience to flow through this experience more easily without much resistance. So this is why you have to build up your ojas in so many different ways in order to affect your physical reality, to create a space of less resistance. So I've seen this personally when I was fasting, when I was on my vow of silence. When you save a lot of the energy from holding back from having sex or masturbation, the energy transfers over into your everyday experience. So I wasn't very aware of this until I started to research how that transfers over. But not only that, I have an outlet that allows me to see in so many different ways how this energy exists. When people play sports, you can see this all the time. It's easier to get in the zone when you have a lot of ojas energy. This is why when people are playing team sports, you can hear this all the time. You're not supposed to be messing around with any women when you got a big game coming up or you got something going on. You're supposed to hold that energy. So people who are not even aware of this energy on a conscious level are aware of it on a subconscious or unconscious level in some kind of way. It's not the women themselves. It's the energy exchange between the women that pulls your energy, pulls your focus away from one thing and puts it on another thing. So non-physically, how this exists from the Hindu breakdown, they, like I said, they call it ojas. The energy of that interaction is known as ojas. So in other ways, like not even dealing with sports or stuff like that, you can see this with just your emotions walking through life. And it's hard to like share a lot of this stuff because it's unbelievable to a lot of people, but that energy affects the entire experience, your interaction with the entire experience. So ojas energy affects like whether or not you're going to hit a bunch of traffic on the way to work and the way you experience whether you hit that traffic or not. Like, are you going to attract it or are you going to add to it? Whatever it is, that ojas energy, not saying that, if you have super ojas energy, you're going to have the perfect life and all that other stuff. And it doesn't work like that. It's not like, it doesn't work specifically like, if you do this and this will happen. So many people are like linear in that perspective. But in a non-linear experience, in so many ways, it does affect your overall numbers, your overall cash. So maybe you might not see it right now, but later on down the road, or maybe in the next moment, whatever it is, that energy is going to be more on your side if you have that ojas energy built up. If it's expended, then you will have more resistance within your experience because the non-physical will, in so many ways, have less resistance to, for lack of a better word, attack you. So your shields will be down. Ojas creates almost like a shield, but not only a shield, like I said, sort of a lubrication for you to float through the experience. And in that space, in that movement, this is why people who hold back a lot of that energy and save a lot of that energy are so attractive in so many different ways. Attractive to people, attractive to animals. Animals can pick up on this energy. It's the non-physical energy that's there that we're unaware of, that we are being attacked by every single day to keep us from tapping into what that actually is. So like I said, the sexual energy, or every kind of energy that's around the sexual organs, because you can see the Ojas tapping into organs too. And I'll get into it in a second, but having your organs surrounded by this clutter of fats and just garbage that we put into our bodies is another way to affect your Ojas. This is why the fast food industry is such a big deal. It's not only covering slowing you down in so many different ways, but it's covering your energy centers. It's blocking, it's creating resistance, physical resistance, but not only that, non-physical resistance. So if the physical resistance, this is why people say if you're physically heavy, then that's coming from first existing in the non-physical heaviness of your reality. So it's not just about the density, the physical slowing you down, it's also the covering up of your organs that both receive and transmit this energy in so many different ways. So your sexual organs, like I said, are in so many different ways at the tippy top, are connected to, if not the base of the crown energy from bringing non-physical into the physical. So this is why not only your physical organs are attacked, and the confusion with that space is such a big deal with people, cutting their organs off and not basing their whole experience on the sexual organs, like how they perceive reality, how they experience reality. Their idea of happiness is based upon the sexual interpretation of who they are. Who they are is based upon, largely a lot of the times, sexual organs. This is why that conversation is such a big deal. This is why the LGBTQ community is such a big deal in worldwide politics. It's tapping into your focus of who and what you are by anchoring it in so many different ways to certain perspectives surrounding that space. So if they have the power to tell you who and what you are based upon the sexual energy, the Ojas behind that sexual energy, they can manipulate the entire human experience. This is why the trans communication, the LGBTQ communication across the board is such a political thing. Not because they're such a powerful community, it's because it's tapping into your non-physical interpretations of reality. Just the same as the heliocentric universe is such a big deal. Locking you into the heliocentric universe, your interpretation of the physical reality, is in so many ways the crown of locking down your universal relationship with this experience. Whereas you have the personal experience, the body experience with transmitted through your sexual relationship with the reality overall. So if they have the power to tell you who and what you are, or confirm who and what you are, they're basically the fact checkers. The experience, the mainstream media are the fact checkers of this experience, this Ojas energy, by putting the conversation on a mass scale and then being the definers, being the deciders of, what's right and what's wrong in that relation. The same way they do with the universe and saying, well, we say what's right and what's wrong, and you're crazy for saying otherwise. So locking you into the artificial Ojas is another way of locking you out of the actual Ojas energy and pushing you further and further away from that energy. Creates a space of being the foundation of the next generation being able to go into the next mind control, the next artificial version of Ojas. And like I said, this energy, the further and further, the more artificial that it gets, the more time that these non-physical entities can harvest that energy. Because the time it's going to take for you individually to get out of that space is going to be a long time. And that time you can see being on like a cash clock. Every moment, every minute, every second that passes that you don't channel your Ojas energy into your own Ojas space, Ojas university, personally, Ojas universe, personal universe. It's existing out there in the ethers just to be harvested by these non-physical entities. So this is why the experience has to be inundated by energy sucking relationships in so many different ways. And like I said, people can feel this energy. People can understand non-physically that you have this energy, and they feel insecure around you in so many different ways because you're shining non-physically. And this is why sometimes you can get into fights with people. People will want to bring you in. Like a physical fight is a perfect example of that energy existing and having to be pulled back into a certain space. So you can see energy vampires needing to suck energy from you. A physical fight from somebody is a way of physically pulling you back into that energy field, because there's no other way that they can do that with you. A good example of this would be when I first moved to Sedona back in 2012. I was hanging out at this restaurant. On the weekends, it turns into like a big bar, but it was like a restaurant close to my house. And a lot of people from Phoenix come up to Sedona because it's only like an hour and a half drive to get away, because the weather's a lot nicer. It's a lot cooler up there. But, to get away, a lot of people take their dates up there because they want to seem like, they're higher thinking or some kind of shit like that. They're just faking it, like a lot of the times. This is what you see from coming up from Phoenix. But the main thing is just to like get away. So I'm sitting there. I don't really like talk. I mean, I know people around there, but this time I was by myself and just hanging out, just sitting around. And this young woman comes up to me and just, sits down across the way. I'm out on the patio, and everybody kind of out there is smoking. I'm not smoking, but I just wanted to be outside. And she sits right down next to me. She's not smoking either. And we just start talking, having like a really good conversation and getting really deep. The flow is really noticeable. There's no resistance there. Everything was like really cool. And her boyfriend walks up from inside of the bar and sees us talking. We're just sitting there talking. And you can see like she sees his insecurity. So that makes her feel like kind of weird, and we're not doing anything weird. We're just talking. But she can see the conversation that we would be having. The whole atmosphere has to shift because the conversation that we were having couldn't be had with her and her boyfriend, or the person she was dating at that time. And that kind of reaction was seen by him because he is also insecure at the same time. He's also realizing that whatever we were talking about was nowhere near what he could have been talking to her with in any kind of way. They have like a different kind of relationship. But in so many ways, our conversation was more intimate than many of the intimate spaces that she had ever gotten into with him. And we weren't even on any kind of sexual sort of tip on that level. So you can see, in reference to the subject of this video, his Ojas energy is very, very different, to say it for lack of a better term. But lacking, I'll say, definitely in reference to my energy, and in reference to keep it focused on the energy that we were having in that conversation. Him not even being able to interact in that space, you can see roughly him feeling in so many ways insecure, definitely, but insignificant. So in that space, he's almost, you can see, existing in a different world, in a different universe. And in order to get back control or veil the insecurities that he was having in that space from everybody knowing what was going on, him also knowing, we know that he's insecure, and he wasn't even this drunk. This is his words, verbatim. after sitting and listening to our conversation, so on and so forth, because he was saying some things he sat there for a little bit trying to get into the conversation, but he just couldn't. And his girlfriend was almost feeling sorry for him because she could see that he was trying, but his trying was just embarrassing. So he was embarrassing himself trying to talk about what we were talking about, and also trying to like pull me into other kind of conversations, but me just kind of blocking them back and forth here and there, like, no, we're not talking about that. I don't talk about that shit. So, I more see it from this kind of perspective. Each time this individual trying to suck us into that energy, back down into that low vibrating ass kind of interaction, it wasn't being received. And I wasn't even talking about any kind of like spiritual shit or anything like that. I was just kind of really keeping it surface level, because like I said, they came up from Phoenix. They're not really from Sedona. Like, people in Sedona can get really deep and all kinds of stuff like that, but they weren't really like that. Like, she was just wanting to have, it seemed like she was having like a breath of fresh air sort of conversation. And I always keep it surface level, because anything more than that is sometimes intrusive, but I don't like going there because there's this kind of more vibrant zone that, from my own opinion, from my own experience, that I've found when I just allow the conversation to be driven where the people are comfortable with. So usually that means that I won't go into the depths of my breakdowns, but I'll give examples of how I perceive stuff from really kind of like everyday sort of experiences, not really going into stuff that is very esoteric, or what people call it spiritual shit like that. Like, I don't do that. I used to kind of think that way, like that was a thing, because I like tested out, but very, very early on. But I realized like that's just bullshit. It's bullshit. And ultimately it starts to get into the space of the spiritual ego. And that's that kind of like the foundation of where the spiritual ego starts to jump off. And I was never about that shit. I've always been about like trying to even be anti-spiritual ego. Like, if that's anywhere around my space, I'm gonna fuck that shit up. Like, that's just, it's even more damaging than, kind of just everyday ego shit. It's more of an illusion. It's more of a weapon, because people do take advantage of people in those kind of spiritual circles. And that's what I say is some of the most damaging and weaponized shit that's out there. I won't stand for that. So if I ever see that, then I'll say something about it. But even more than that, I never even want to be a part of that. So that's why I say I just don't even step into those spaces. I stay away from it. So, like I said, we were keeping it very surface level, but our surface level that we were having in our conversation before he showed up was very deep for him. So he felt very insignificant and insecure. And I shit you not, these were his words that he said in a space of being very, very vulnerable and very little in that moment. He said, "So, what are you, some kind of nigger Jesus?" And I swear, my whole fucking body just was, I don't know how to explain it, but the old me, I would say the old me, because I was like on cloud nine. I was just like rolling. We were having a good conversation, and this dude comes up out of nowhere and says that stuff. And it was so extreme that it got me to where I was like, nah, for that to happen in this moment, this has to be a test. This has to be a fucking test. Like, it's just one of those obvious things that are going on. So after just holding that awkward silence, because I didn't respond, like, she could see, she was looking at me, and I saw the terror in her face when he said that, because she thought I was gonna fucking destroy this dude. She turned so fucking white, it was ridiculous. And I'm almost turning red, because my my blood is like boiling, and I'm looking at this dude. He's a little bit drunk, obviously, really a little bit younger than me, and at this point realizing that he fucked up and getting scared because he looked at her, and then he saw the terror in her eyes because, like I said, we were having a surface level talk, and she was asking me, "Oh, so like, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Oakland." And she's like, "Oh, this is a completely different." So, like she knows a little bit of my history and being from Oakland and being in that space now. So she thought I was gonna go Oakland on his ass like immediately. That's why she was just tripping, and then he saw that in her face, and then that's when he got scared. And that's when I was just like, when I saw the fear in his eyes, because as soon as he said it, blood started boiling. I was immediately in like, fuck this dude up mode. I was just like thinking, grab this chair and fucking bust it over his head. That's in my world at that time. I was just like, fuck this dude up. Like, don't give a fuck about anything else. Destroy this person. And I was just, and in those thoughts, I really kind of sat back and looked and was thinking like, I just went from this to this quickly because of this dude. And this dude saying this one little thing and then being like, oh my God, like what is going on? And I just held that awkward silence because I love that shit, like uncomfortable silence. And you can also see a lot of people too in those moments. I saw the fear in his eyes. I saw the kind of like this dude turned into a little kid almost in a space of in a space of like seconds, and it was almost like a please don't hurt me sort of look that he was giving me. And then in that moment I was just like calming myself down, and that's when she said, I think we should just go. I think it's time to go, and I just looked away and took a few breaths, and they just walked out of there. They left the whole bar like immediately because it was like a fight actually happened without happening, and they were the ones who were responsible for it, so they had to leave. And I saw them walk out and walk down the road, and then I had to get out of that space too, so I left right after that. But you can see the example of that is that people who are in that space who don't really have that energy naturally have to find ways to pull you into a lower Ojas type of universe or experience in order to not only attempt to gain back control of the interaction, but to suck the Ojas energy from you by pulling you into that space. So this is what I'm saying overall. The experience overall does this every single day. Your television, your social media, your university system, your politics, your over sexualizing of everything in your reality, your relationships, your commercials, even in your grocery store, you're surrounded by, like when you check out in the grocery store, what kind of books do they have in the grocery store? Because they know people are going to constantly go into the grocery store because you're always going to have to get food. So where is sex sold to you in the grocery store? They have these romantic novels in the grocery store section all the time. So even that, like, I mean, that's kind of like the almost hidden version because people don't pay attention to that. So you see it, but you don't really pay attention to it. But beyond that, the more noticeable are the magazines that are there telling you about like who got divorced, who got married, who had a baby, all the bullshit that's happening to the celebrities. Celebrities are used as physical pieces on the Ojas chessboard to give examples of both positive and negative things that are happening in the overall Ojas energy realm, but specifically in reference to this example, the sexual energy. So who's having sex with who? Who's reproducing with who? So this creates this non-physical thinking. It triggers you. Like I said, it's not only the action like masturbating and having an orgasm, releasing that physical energy. That's just like one of the peaks, because that gets you on the soul, the mind, and the body. But you have the energy of the non-physical energy happening with just your thoughts, the Ojas energy existing in your thoughts. So to be triggered in thought, in the grocery section, your kids are looking at this shit. They're looking at the books. They're looking at the magazines. They're being triggered by the candy that's shaped in phallic shapes, sitting right at eye level with your kids. So you're being triggered every single, from birth to death, every moment of your reality. Your Ojas energy is being attacked and siphoned and put into this non-physical bank in so many different ways. And like I've said in previous videos, this is kind of the energy behind the birth certificate program, where they put a literal birth certificate, your actual birth certificate, locking with the soles of your feet, the imprints of your feet, that coding, that those symbols that exist. See them as symbols. See them as soul symbols existing on your fingertips and on the soles of your feet. Put on a piece of paper, locked into a vault, a bank vault for your entire life. You can never touch this certificate, this article dealing directly with your soul that has a number on it, that gets traded on the stock exchange. So that's just the physical existence of this energy being in a direct relationship with this establishment, with the government. But non-physically, how does that energy exist? Those are just the physical pawns using it. How does that exist? What is that connecting to non-physically? If they're doing it physically, what do you think they're doing non-physically? If that's existing as a penny in the physical realm, what are the non-physical $1,000, $10,000 bills energetically doing? What's being traded up there? Because your thoughts are worth money, cash, energetic, Ojas, being siphoned, being parasite, vampired. See it as like I said, the melanin in relation to Ojas as far as value. See something like masturbating to pornography being seen as like the tippy top, because it's energy being created by this siphoning system, for one. Two, it's dealing with sexual energy, and it's having a physical response from your body. So that's hitting you on the soul, the mind, and the body. And I haven't connected this to anything else, but when I was thinking about what are the symbols that pornography really relate to, and it's the XXX. So that's what I was saying, like the XXX actually stands for the Xing out of your soul, the Xing out of the energy of your mind, and the Xing out of the energy of your body. All of that energy is being siphoned in that one split second, in that one moment, that release point of the orgasm that you have. Like I said, it's also the energy of the non-physical, your thought, just your time being focused on that. How much time people spend focusing on that. So this is why sex overall is triggered in everything. Your grocery store, social media, cartoons, even having you in school. Like dating is such a big thing in school. So you're dating, you're thinking, you're looking around, you're constantly energetically, when you're in that adolescent space, you're in that mode. So the thoughts get focused and channeled. This is another reason why the education system exists out there, to get you enveloped in that space regularly, So that energy, like I said, this is why the porn industry is such a big deal, because it hits you. It's like the highest value being sucked into a non-physical bank, a non-physical cash. So you can see that as like somebody focusing on that energy, focusing on that magazine or that video, and then releasing that energy in the Ojas realm. That could be like $1,000 taken, put in that bank, away from you, mind you, losing $1,000 energetically. A step down from that being just looking or thinking about porn or thinking about that space, that energy, without actually releasing, being like $100, focusing on that, whatever it is, constantly in that space, in that moment, boom, throwing bills away, putting it right in the bank, somebody else's bank. And then see the idea of thoughts, subconscious, stuff that you're being hit with every single day on the television. The not you focusing your conscious energy on the actual acts of sexual release, but being inundated with it on a regular basis, constantly losing $1. You can see this as like $1. So like $1 to $100 to $1,000. Those spiritual finances are being siphoned into a bank. And that bank is owned by these entities who run this experience. And for us not being able to be aware of the non-physical across the board, we are energetically broke in so many different ways. So another version of this, because like I said, that's just one form of Ojas siphoning, getting you to react, getting you to move. What's another big thing that's going on right now that is affecting you, affecting your body, affecting your mind, and in so many ways affecting you on a soul level? Literally, people are dying. This vaccine, inserting something into your physical body, boom, one level. Psychologically being dumbed down, that you allow this to happen on an individual level, and on a mass scale level, pushing legislation, making laws. This is another siphoning of energy that exists by allowing this to happen psychologically, on the psychological level. Spiritually, people are knowing it's going to affect your vessel, the housing of your cellular experience, allowing this system to do that. So this vaccine is affecting you, attacking your ojas on the soul, the mind, and the body level. This is why the vaccine is such a big deal. They don't give a shit about you being sick or not. It's more about the vaccine than it is about, making sure you're healthy. Obviously, look at the food that's out there. Look at the medical industry. Look at the big pharma. They don't care about your health. This is about the industry. So what's another thing that's big in this industry, this Ojas siphoning industry? Alcohol. Completely takes you out of your mind in so many different ways, fucks up your body in so many different ways, makes you hungover, makes you do things with your body you wouldn't normally do if you weren't drunk. And just locking down those two experiences is another way of separating you from your spiritual energies. So this is why alcohol is such a big deal and welcomed by society, celebrated by society, put on all these commercials. Sex and alcohol go hand in hand. How are they selling you beers? Look at your Super Bowl ads. Look at your Bud Light, Budweiser commercials. Look at all that shit out there. Selling you whiskey, selling you vodka. Some naked stuff is going on. It's going to be some titties and some ass somewhere if they're going to sell you some beer. Some Hennessy, some vodka, some Truly, something. There's going to be a titty somewhere. So like I said, all this stuff adds up. These are like dollars, $100 bills, $10,000 bills. So your focus are like the bills almost. It's your conscious focus. And then you choosing to focus that energy is where it turns into like big money. But your emotions, your non-physical emotions, tapping into your subconscious, like being able to hit your subconscious with things and you don't even know. You're emotional. What happens when you're emotionally hit subconsciously? Your subconscious emotions. See, those can be seen as like coins, like quarters and nickels and dimes and shit. So it's still money. It's still energy. It's still something that can be put into a bank. This is why your emotions get played all the time, because those quarters add up to dollar bills, and that's money. Imagine, look at all the little messing around with stock exchange stuff. Look at all the 0.0000 things that are worth in like the cryptocurrency world. Fractions and fractions of a penny add up. How many people are so-called millionaires and right now because of buying into cryptocurrency early on when it was a fraction of a penny? So how does that carry over to emotional energy in the Ojas universe? Stuff that's worth even a penny, a nickel. That's a lot of money. So this is why your emotions have to be played on a regular basis, because they're banking those coins, banking on your emotions to fund a lot of their energetic experiences in other forms. So that's why emotions are such a big deal in the overall experience. Your energy in motion, or that motion of that energy is being put into, like seeing that energy in motion on a hamster wheel, putting that energy, a generator, being connected to that hamster wheel, and that generator putting those coins into a piggy bank at your expense, told to you for your benefit. So beyond that, you have, like I said, the peak levels of siphoning this Ojas energy, relating to sexual energy, relating to thoughts, what kind of thoughts are worth more energetically, interpretations of reality, what are the most influential of that Ojas energy being siphoned off somewhere else. And last but not least, I don't want to leave this one out. This is why I said early on why I have such a big deal with people who are involved in siphoning off this energy from a spiritual perspective. These fake gurus, fake spiritual teachers, and even people who aren't aware that they are doing this, saying they're doing it for another reason. These truthers and new agers who are making YouTube videos, whether they know it or not, are energy vampires in so many different ways, sucking the energy, the Ojas energy, from your time, from your perspective on a regular basis. Like I said, whether they are aware of it or not, doesn't matter. They are responsible. It's activated in some form. This is why your influencers on regular social media, let alone like on the truther or new age social media, this is why they are allowed to continue on. They're allowed to get bigger because the energy that goes to them, the little pennies that they're getting on the dollar that YouTube is getting, is they're still making a profit off of these people, energetically and financially. So this is why YouTube focuses so much on content that lasts for a long time. So you have like a lot of these people are just like doing debates that last for like 5 and 6 hours. People just sitting on there talking about the same shit over and over again. Spiritual teachings for like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. YouTube loves that shit because while they're making 2 pennies on the second, YouTube is making $10 energetically on the second. And the entities behind the scene are making $100,000 of energetic dollars per second, per minute, per hour. And the little minions, YouTubers and influencers and so-called truthers and new agers are just trying to make it, trying to survive, trying to get that little funky ass little dollar at the expense of all the Ojas energy in the world. And this is at the essence of what people call that, what's that term of the road to wherever is good intentions. The road to hell is built on good, however the hell it goes. Fucking people driving people into a goddamn wall. Talking about is helping you. They're saving the world. Get the fuck out of here. That energy is being siphoned and put into a bank at your expense. Like I said in previous videos, there ain't nothing but what these new agers put out there and these truthers put out there. It's almost like a spiritual masturbation. And then when you get involved in these truther and new age circles, you're just getting involved in like a partner assisted spiritual masturbation circle. So these YouTube channels, these influencers that are constantly coming up with a new old subject to talk about to suck your energy away over time and time and time again, never really doing anything about the overall system. Like I mentioned in the last video, I think it was the last video, people like Russell Brand and Joe Rogan, they are designed to suck that Ojas energy, the most premium type of Ojas energy, because it's veiled under the guise of being forward progress. That's like the cream of the crop. That's like the most diamond encrusted Ojas energy that's out there. Like you got all that other bottom of the barrel shit with these TikTokers and just regular ass boring ass celebrities and shit. Like that's crumb shit. Like all the shit on the mainstream magazine section, that's like scraping the bottom of the barrel. But when you multiply it times like millions and billions of people, that's a lot of money that they're putting away in those banks. But when you're really talking about like putting some real Ojas energy is when you take these people who are on the precipice of like getting into bigger spaces of themselves and breaking down bigger pictures to stop the siphoning of this Ojas energy. When you take those people and then you veer them off their path and suck them into your spiritual masturbation, your partner assisted masturbation circle, and that's when that shit starts to get real fucked up. And like I said, that energy, that kind of Ojas energy is the cream of the crop. They're getting some real bank on their buck when they're taking some so-called high vibrating or potentially high vibrating beings and just, sucking it back into the same kind of energy generator that is working on people who are basically getting sucked into those worlds with tabloid sections in politics and shit like that. Those partner assisted spiritual masturbation circles are fucked up. And like I said, the time is spiritual itself. So you don't have to be speaking about spiritual information. Like talking about politics is taken away from the potential of spiritual energy talks, undoing a lot of the systems that we have running constantly because we're comfortable with them. So you can see in comparison, the people who are in those circles, their levels of energy, the worth, the precious metals that exist in those people's interactions are peaked out. Their level, they're like all gold plated. They're like diamond cord and all kinds of shit. Like people who are on those paths and they're still getting their energy sucked. There's a lot of stuff happening just in a moment. Their minutes are worth like other people's. It might take somebody else like 10 days to achieve energetically what somebody can share in like a moment. Like 1 minute of energy is worth so many other days and hours with somebody else. And you see that individual that I almost hit over the head with a fucking chair in a bar in Arizona. Like energetically, that dude is he's on some like meta level sort of ignorance. So he's not, his energy isn't really like pushing that much. So they need to suck off the energy. They need to like really attack people who are in those other realms of Ojas energy in order to get just a little crumbs, just a little stuff that leaks off of that interaction. So this is why they'll put them out there, put them in your space to attack you, test you in so many different ways. That's why I was saying in that moment I was being tested. These energy vampires will be thrown at you because when you have that high vibrating Ojas energy, you stand out non-physically. So those non-physical entities will do what they can to attack you in so many different ways. And if you want to work on this energy in so many different ways, from my own experience, one of the biggest time that I sort of felt like these peaked out moments was, like I said, I went on a 20-day fast to where I was just drinking water. I took my sea moss capsules in the morning, and I would eat between like 1 and 4 dates a day. That's all I had for 20 days straight. Some days it was just one date, like an actual date, just to have something for my brain to access, because it was just like for the first 8 days, it was nothing. It was just water and sea moss. But after those 8 days, psychologically, I just wasn't feeling right. So I was like, if I'm going to do anything, it'll just be like one date. So I started off with like one date and then 2 dates and then 2 dates in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and then 1 in the evening. I think I only did like 4 dates, like maybe 2 or 3 times out of those 20 days. But I usually stayed around like 3, between 1 and 3. But fasting is one way to build up that energy. Fasting from activities, shit that's going to suck that energy away from you, is another way to do it. Not watching TV, not watching a lot of this energy sucking shit that's out there on a regular basis. Definitely when I took that vow of silence, you can see how that's a lot of storing of energy. Psychologically, my focus was just banking. I was just banking all of that Ojas energy from not having to translate a lot of the bullshit into regular everyday experiences, not interacting, not reacting on so many different levels, psychologically and physically and spiritually, by not speaking. I mean, you're still thinking, but like I said in previous videos, when you aren't allowing yourself to physically speak, it affects your thoughts too. So the thought energy, the peaked out, the diamond, that's the diamond energy of the Ojas, is the thoughts in relation to physically speaking and so on and so forth. That was affected. So my thoughts changed. I didn't even really care to think about certain things anymore because I wasn't saying anything anyway. I didn't have to react or respond to anything. So that's another way. And you don't have to take a 1-year vow of silence like I did. You can just, choose not to react or respond in certain moments. Don't talk to this person that feels like they're sucking your energy, or don't do this or don't do that. Whatever it is, see it from like I said, the cash. Like you can see from the technology perspective of what cash is. But see, that cash is like real cash too. Once you start adding up those dollars and $100 bills, $20 bills, and even the quarters and all that stuff adds up, and you don't want to waste it anymore. You don't want people to just come and just break open your piggy bank and start pulling shit out of your piggy bank and then just being like, what do you mean? You used to spend all this money on me. Now you don't want to do this anymore? Fuck you. You can see some real people come out and they're like, fuck you. Oh, they're going to go crazy once you don't give them that energy anymore. But that's needed. You need to stop doing that because it's not doing them any good. And it's not doing you any good. You're enabling their Ojas vampiric energy and you're pulling away. They're stealing your time, and you're pulling away from the potential that you could do from maxing out with your own energy. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I can get into from this perspective. I know I can see where it's going. So I'll get into it in the future. But as of now, this is a good introduction to that perspective. And for people who follow me on Instagram, I'm still locked out of my account because of a post that I did. I shared it on the post section, community post on YouTube, to let people know. I said something about Fauci and what he was doing with them dogs, and how you don't want to fuck with people and their dogs and shit, because that's more damaging. That's more fucked up to people in their eyes than messing with actual people. Like, people care about their dogs and they do actual people, and that's fucking facts right there. So I made a little post kind of funny about it, and I guess Instagram thought that was they flagged it for violence and incitement. Like I said, you don't want to say anything, you don't fuck with them dogs. But they literally blocked me out of my account. And it's funny, it's kind of smart how they did it. They send you a message that says, click here, click next here. You've been blocked because of this post you made a few days ago. Click next. But the thing is, when you click next, nothing happens. So that screen just pops up over and over again. And even when I close out my screen on my tablet, it'll just pop up, even if Instagram is closed. So I had to delete Instagram from my tablet, because even when Instagram wasn't open, when I would close my tablet and open it back up, it would just pop back on the screen as the first thing, like, alert, alert, you've violated our community guidelines, and click next to continue. But like I said, you click next and it doesn't do anything. So I can't access Instagram at all. My page is still up there, but I can't do anything with it. So if you're looking for me on Instagram and you don't see anything, that's why. And I'm just taking this time as a break from Instagram right now anyway, because that's just extra gram anyway. It's just extra little. If anybody knows anything about that, then let me know. But I'm not in any rush to get back on Instagram anyway. But just to let people know who follow me there, that's why I'm not on there now. So